There are those who find confidence in a plan, and there are those who eventually discover that the most important things that they'll ever create arrive without one. To quote Doc Brown from Back to the Future, "Where we're going, we don't need roads." I've always loved that line because it points towards something many artists, entrepreneurs, and conscious leaders eventually discover for themselves. The further that you move into meaningful work, the less likely it is that someone has already solved the problem for you. The future begins asking questions that cannot be answered by borrowing someone else's roadmap. This is both the burden and the privilege of creation. Meaningful futures rarely announce themselves in technicolor. They arrive in loose sketches as possibilities or intuitions, fragments, and invitations. The challenge is learning how to navigate those territories without becoming trapped by the very strategies that helped create your success in the first place. That question fascinated Tom and me because we kept seeing remarkably capable people answer it in very different ways. Some generated momentum through commitment. Others adapted with remarkable fluidity. Some identified opportunities before others could even see them. Some navigated complexity through extraordinary awareness. What fascinated us was that each approach granted access to certain strengths while obscuring access to others. The qualities that helped someone arrive or thrive in one season of life often became the exact qualities limiting them in the next. Over decades of studying martial arts, embodiment, psychology, leadership, performance, and human development, 4 remarkably consistent patterns kept appearing. We call them the warrior, the shapeshifter, the sage, and the asset. Before we go any further, this is the perfect place to pause and take the Somatic Skins Quiz if you haven't already. It's free, it only takes a few minutes, and it will reveal to you the skin your system currently trusts the most. More importantly, it may reveal capacities that already exist within you, but have not yet been fully cultivated. And that's important, because not all skins emerge the same way. For some people, that skin emerged as an original act of organizational genius. For others, it was conditioned through life experience and reinforced over time. Either way, it reveals how your system has learned to navigate uncertainty, challenge, opportunity, and growth. The reason that's important is that the future rarely asks us to become more of the same. Ultimately, this work isn't about living into fixed categories. It's about accessing untapped range. Every meaningful future asks something different from us. The entrepreneur entering unfamiliar territory, the artist finding a new voice, the coach expanding their impact, the leader stepping into greater responsibility. All eventually discover that the qualities which brought them here are not always the qualities that will carry them forward. The somatic skins are a map of those capacities. The warrior grants access to structure. When you wear the warrior skin, your body organizes around integrity, stability, and commitment. Direction becomes available. Form becomes available. You become capable of holding shape under pressure rather than collapsing beneath it. The shadow of the warrior is rigidity. Structure hardens into force. Commitment becomes stubbornness. The ability to stand firm slowly becomes an inability to adapt. At its highest expression, the warrior grants access to disciplined power. You can commit fully without becoming rigid, lead without dominating, and remain strong without sacrificing sensitivity. Whenever life demands courage, responsibility, conviction, and action, the warrior is available. The shapeshifter grants access to flexibility. When you wear the shapeshifter skin, your body organizes around adaptability, responsiveness, and movement. Possibility becomes available. Options become available. You become capable of adjusting to ever-changing conditions without losing momentum. The shadow of the shapeshifter is dispersion. Flexibility loses its center and adaptation becomes avoidance. Movement replaces meaningful progress. At its highest expression, the shapeshifter grants access to adaptive intelligence. You can evolve without losing yourself, pivot without panic, and remain flexible while maintaining direction. Whenever life demands creativity, innovation, responsiveness, and change, the shapeshifter is available. The sage grants focus. When you wear the sage skin, your body organizes around attention, perception, and understanding. Clarity becomes available. Discernment becomes available. You become capable of separating out signal from noise as complexity increases. The shadow of the sage, however, is detachment. Focus narrows too far. Understanding becomes a substitute for participation, and analysis replaces action. At its highest expression, the sage grants access to embodied wisdom. You can see clearly without becoming detached, understand deeply without becoming trapped in thought, and bring clarity into situations that would otherwise feel chaotic. Whenever life demands discernment, strategy, perspective, and understanding, the sage is available. The asset grants access to awareness. When you wear the asset skin, your body organizes around sensitivity, perception, and feeling. Connection becomes available. Attunement becomes available. You become capable of perceiving information that often remains invisible to others. But the shadow of the asset is overwhelm. Awareness loses its structure and boundaries become unclear. Sensitivity becomes difficult to organize. At its highest expression, the asset grants access to attuned awareness. You can remain open without becoming porous, sensitive without becoming overwhelmed, and deeply connected without losing yourself. Whenever life demands empathy, trust, connection, awareness, and the navigation of complex human systems, the asset is available. The critical insight of the somatic skins is that these are not competing, static personalities. Rather, at their point of conscious access, they are complementary intelligences. Each grants access to capacities that become invaluable under the right circumstances. And each represents a different way of creating coherence and navigating uncertainty. And each becomes increasingly available as capacity develops, which brings us to an important distinction in this model. Understanding a skin does not automatically grant access to its highest expression. These are not concepts. They are somatic competencies, realities, each marked by unique nervous system configuration. Two things determine what levels of expression are available to you in any given moment. The first is capacity. Capacity refers to the developmental depth you have cultivated within a skin. At high capacity, a warrior has access to strengths unavailable to a low capacity warrior. The same is true for the sage, the shapeshifter, and the asset. So capacity determines the size of the toolbox available to you and how reliable those capacities remain available when stakes rise. The second thing determining what level of expression is available to you is awareness. So even if a capacity exists within you, You must still perceive what is happening in real time. You must notice old patterns arising. You must recognize when your default strategy is insufficient for the situation in front of you. And then you must consciously choose the orientation that best serves the moment. This is where command begins. Most people spend their lives unconsciously wearing the skin their system trusts the most. So they react, they default. They follow familiar pathways because those pathways have worked often enough to earn trust. Command emerges when awareness becomes refined enough to perceive those impulses as they arise, and capacity becomes developed enough to provide genuine alternatives. At that point, something extraordinary becomes possible. You are no longer dependent upon a single strategy. There's a line from the book that captures this perfectly. The warrior moves when called. The sage sees when needed. The asset feels when truth hides. The shapeshifter adapts when life turns. But I command. The moment determines the strategy. The future determines the demand, and you possess the range to respond appropriately. That distinction sits at the heart of everything we teach. If you've taken the quiz, keep an eye on your inbox. We'll send you a free guide designed to help you better understand your dominant skin and begin to explore the capacities that sit beyond it. If you haven't taken the quiz yet, start there. It will give you a language for understanding how your system currently organizes itself and a glimpse into possibilities that may be waiting just beyond your current range. For those who want to go deeper, Tom and I teach this work inside the Prestige. The Prestige is our Applied Somatics Academy. It exists for artists, entrepreneurs, coaches, and conscious leaders whose future is demanding more from them than their current organization can reliably provide. Through live events, coaching circles, and embodiment practices, we help people cultivate the range required to meet increasingly complex opportunities without losing themselves in the process. Because eventually, the question stops being who you are, and it starts being about what capacities remain dormant within you and who you might become as those capacities come online. That journey is the work, and it's cool as hell. We'd be honored to help you walk through it.